Beside Gongchen Bridge in Hangzhou, the Grand Canal moves quietly past one of the city's most interesting cultural corners. This visit begins with a mystery. How could something as delicate as a fan become the center of a fire story, a craft tradition, and a museum all its own? Beside Gongchen Bridge in Hangzhou, the Grand Canal moves quietly past one of the city's most interesting cultural corners. This visit begins with a mystery. How could something as delicate as a fan become the center of a fire story, a craft tradition, and a museum all its own? The museum begins with the origin and early history of Chinese fans. The earliest fans may have come from very practical needs: cooling the body, moving air, and driving away insects. But even early on, fans also appeared in noble travel and court processions, where long-handled fans provided shade and ceremony as much as comfort. During the Han Dynasty, fans went through an important change. Handles that had once sat to one side moved toward the center, creating a more balanced, moon-shaped form. These round fans became one of the traditional styles of China and remained popular for centuries, from the Western Han period into the Song dynasty. The museum also separates feather fans from bamboo fans and explains that the origin of the folding fan is still debated. Some scholars trace folding fans to early Chinese records, while others believe they were invented in Japan and entered China around the beginning of the Northern Song dynasty. Either way, by the Ming dynasty, folding fans had become mainstream. The museum then changes from display cases into a recreated fan shop street. This is where the story becomes easier to imagine. Fans were not only objects behind glass, they belonged to workshops, shop counters, customers, stories, and the daily economy of Old Hangzhou. One shop scene even connects fan culture with familiar local storytelling, including the legend of the White Snake. Another section explains that fans were much more than tools for cooling. They could be gifts, signs of friendship, symbols of status, objects connected with remembrance, and even instruments in literature and performance. A fan could carry a painting, a poem, a social message, or a story. In the ceremonial displays, fans appear as part of court life, stage culture, and wedding ritual. In one ancient wedding custom shown here, the bride uses a fan as part of the ceremony, covering her face before the ritual moment changes. Nearby, other figures show how fans entered performance and storytelling, where a simple gesture with a fan could suggest character, rank, emotion, or movement. Even without seeing the craftsmen at work, the finished fans show the patience behind them. These sandalwood folding fans are carved, hollowed, and decorated with burnt designs. Here we see a hollowed and pyrographic sandalwood folding fan with the painting of the four arts: lyre playing, chess, calligraphy, and painting. Here is a sandalwood folding fan with the painting of ladies playing musical instruments. On this fan we see auspicious patterns of dragons and phoenixes. And finally, a hollowed and pyrographic sandalwood folding fan with plum blossom and crane design. Near the end of the visit, Peifen stands in front of the largest folding fan in the museum. The label identifies it as an edge-carved folding screen fan from 2016, painted with a panoramic view of the Grand Canal. Its redwood ribs and broad painted surface make it feel less like a handheld object and more like a small piece of architecture. The fire story connected with a famous Wangxingji giant fan adds another layer of mystery to this museum. A delicate object, remembered not only for its size, but for what it survived. Here, the fan becomes a bridge between Hangzhou craft, Grand Canal scenery, and local memory. As Wayne continues through the Hangzhou Fan Museum, the atmosphere changes from a modern exhibition hall into something that feels more like an old street. This part of the museum is not only showing fans as objects in glass cases. It is trying to recreate the world where fans were made, sold, repaired, collected, and admired. The wooden shop fronts, lattice windows, hanging signs, and rows of folding fans help the visitor imagine what a traditional fan shop might have felt like in old Hangzhou. For centuries, fans were part of daily life in China, but in Hangzhou they became especially important. A fan could be practical, used to create a little breeze on a hot day. But it could also be beautiful, carrying painted landscapes, calligraphy, poems, or scenes from literature. In the hands of a skilled maker, a simple folding fan became something between a useful tool and a small work of art. The recreated shops also remind us that fan culture depended on many different hands. There were people who shaped the ribs, prepared the surface, painted the design, added calligraphy, mounted the finished fan, and finally sold it to a customer. Looking at the figures inside these shop scenes, the museum gives a quiet sense of that older working world, not just the finished fan, but the labor and skill behind it. Some of the displays show shelves filled with different fan shapes and styles. Others suggest the commercial life of the fan trade, where finished fans would have been displayed almost like paintings. A customer was not simply buying something to cool themselves. They might be choosing a design that reflected taste, education, status, or even a personal connection to a favorite poem, story, or landscape. This final section helps connect Hangzhou's fan tradition to a much wider story. The fan may be small enough to hold in one hand, but it traveled across regions, appeared in literature and theater, entered shops and homes, and became part of how people expressed refinement, identity, and beauty. As the walk continues, the dark old street setting opens into a brighter gallery. Here the mood changes again. The glass cases and map-like floor design suggest that fans were never limited to one city or one country. Different cultures developed their own fan forms, materials, and meanings. Some were delicate and decorative. Others were practical, ceremonial, or connected with performance and social customs. But before we go, we're taken through the museum's gift shop. Every tourist location has one, and this museum is no exception. Here you can purchase gifts to remember your walk through the history of the fan, either for yourself or as gifts for your friends and family. By the time Wayne and Peifen leave the China Fan Museum, the fan no longer feels like a simple summer object. It has become a small doorway into art, ceremony, industry, literature, and Hangzhou's Grand Canal story. This is only one stop in the Gongchen Bridge cultural area, and future visits will continue with nearby museums devoted to umbrellas, knives, scissors, swords, and traditional Hangzhou arts and crafts. If this quiet side of China is the kind of travel story you enjoy, like the video, leave a comment, subscribe to Why Visit China, and ring the bell so you know when the next Grand Canal Museum visit is uploaded.